Pay close attention to this footage. It was captured by a doorbell camera at 1:47 in the morning. The figure you see standing on this porch is wearing a mask, dark clothing, gloves, and a backpack. Look at his right side. He's carrying a gun in a holster. What this man doesn't realize is that even though he's about to rip this camera off the wall, the footage has already been uploaded to the cloud. He thinks he's erasing his tracks, but the data has already left the building. This footage was taken outside the home of 84-year-old Nancy Guthrie, the mother of NBC Today, show host Savannah Guthrie. Within minutes of this recording, Nancy would vanish from her bed. Her blood would be found on the front porch. Her phone, her medication, her personal belongings, all left behind. She has not been seen since. For 3 weeks, hundreds of FBI agents and sheriff's deputies have worked around the clock. Over 21,000 tips have poured in. DNA has been collected, tested, and sent to national databases. None of it has produced a match. But now, investigators are going back to where it all started. The very camera this man tried to destroy. Because the system may have captured more than he ever imagined. And what was stored in the back end of that camera could be the thing that finally reveals who he is. This might be what will bring Nancy home. Before we go any further, if you're new here, this channel covers cases like this every week. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any updates on Nancy's case. And as we go through this, if you know anything at all, that could help bring Nancy home, would drop it in the comments or call the tip line at the end of this video. Even if you think it's small, it could be the piece investigators are missing. I also want to hear what you think happened. Share your thoughts, your theories. Let's keep this conversation going. And if you want updates on this case and others delivered straight to your inbox, head over to truecrimeshub.com and sign up for our newsletter. Every time there's a major development, you'll be the first to know. Link is in the description and the pinned comment. Now let's go back to the beginning. Tucson, Arizona, January 31st, 2026. It's a Saturday evening, and 84-year-old Nancy Guthrie is getting ready for dinner at her daughter Annie's house. Nancy lives alone in a quiet home in the Catalina Foothills, a peaceful community just north of Tucson. She's lived in the area for more than 50 years, ever since she moved there with her family in the early 1970s. Nancy is sharp, independent. She drives herself around, attends church every Sunday, and stays connected to her 3 children, Savannah, Annie, and Cameron. Her husband Charles passed away in 1988 at just 49 years old during a mining expedition in Mexico. Nancy raised her children largely on her own after that. On this particular evening, Nancy orders an Uber at 5:32 p.m. to take her to Annie's house for dinner and game night. It's the kind of Saturday she loves. Time with family, no rush, no worry. After dinner, Annie's husband, Tommaso Cioni, drives Nancy back home. They arrive at approximately 9:48 p.m. Tommaso watches Nancy's garage door open. He waits 2 minutes, long enough to see that she's safely inside, and then he drives away. That is the last time anyone sees Nancy Guthrie alive. What happens next unfolds in a span of just 41 minutes, and it's those 41 minutes that investigators have been trying to reconstruct ever since. At 1:47 a.m., Nancy's Nest doorbell camera, a smart security device connected to Google's cloud, is disconnected. Someone has either ripped it from the wall, cut its power, or manually disabled it. The footage captured just before it goes dark shows the masked figure standing on her porch. At 2:28 a.m., just 41 minutes later, Nancy's pacemaker app disconnects from her phone. Nancy wears a Bluetooth-enabled pacemaker, a medical device implanted in her chest that monitors her heart. It syncs wirelessly with an app on her phone. When the connection drops, it means one of 2 things. Either the phone has been destroyed or moved far out of range, or the pacemaker itself has stopped transmitting. For the investigators who will eventually piece this timeline together, those 41 minutes are everything. Something happened inside that house between 1:47 and 2:28 a.m. Nancy didn't leave voluntarily. She didn't pack a bag. She didn't take her medication. Medication the sheriff later says she needs every 24 hours. And without it, the consequences could be fatal. But none of this is discovered until the next morning. Sunday, February 1st. Nancy is supposed to join a live stream of her church service that morning. She never logs on. When church members notice her absence, they contact the family. At around 11 a.m., relatives go to Nancy's home to check on her. Well, they search the house. They search the property. Nancy is not there, but her phone is. Her belongings are. And the scene inside the home is, in the words of investigators, very concerning. At 12:03 p.m., the family calls 911. When Pima County Sheriff's deputies arrive, they immediately recognize this is not a routine missing person case. The front door area has blood on it. Forensic testing will later confirm the blood belongs to Nancy. Her doorbell camera has been tampered with. Personal items are scattered. The conditions inside are inconsistent with a voluntary departure. By that afternoon, the sheriff's department has shifted from a search operation to a criminal investigation. Homicide detectives are called in. Sheriff Chris Nanos addresses the public for the first time. The FBI joins the case and bringing federal resources to bear on what is now classified as a suspected kidnapping. Search and rescue teams deploy across the foothills. K-9 units, drones, aerial resources, customs and border protection. The Catalina Foothills, normally a quiet retirement community, is now swarming with law enforcement. And for Savannah Guthrie, who is supposed to be co-hosting NBC's coverage of the 2026 Winter Olympics, the world stops. She steps away from her duties and flies to Arizona. February 5th. The Pima County Sheriff's Department holds a detailed press conference. They release a timeline of the night Nancy vanished, and then they show the footage. The Nest doorbell camera captured a figure on Nancy's porch in the early hours of February 1st. The man is wearing a full face mask, dark clothing, black gloves, and sneakers. On his back is a black backpack. On his hip, a holstered firearm. Investigators later described the holster as unique, not the kind an experienced gun owner would use. A firearms expert who reviews the footage says it appears to be a universal fit holster, the kind a novice would buy. The FBI releases the images and video publicly. Savannah Guthrie shares them on her Instagram. As millions of people study the footage frame by frame, investigators begin their own forensic review. And this is where the story takes its first critical turn. The Nest camera was disabled at 1:47 a.m. The kidnapper clearly intended to destroy the recording. But Nest cameras don't store footage locally on the device. They upload clips to Google's cloud servers through Wi-Fi. So even though the physical camera was destroyed, and data that had already been transmitted to Google's servers before the disconnection may still exist. At this early stage, investigators have the footage that was already publicly released. But the question nobody is asking yet is, what else is stored in the back end? Are there additional frames? Earlier clips from the same night? Footage of the suspect approaching from a different angle? Or footage that shows how he arrived? On foot? In a vehicle? From which direction? That question will become central to the case 3 weeks later. February 11th. FBI agents searching the area around Nancy's home make a discovery approximately 2 miles from the house. In a field near the side of a road, they find a black glove. The glove appears to match the one seen on the suspect in the doorbell camera footage. It's sent to a lab for DNA analysis. Our preliminary results come back. The glove contains DNA from an unknown male. For a brief moment, it feels like a breakthrough. If the DNA matches anyone in the FBI's national database, CODIS, which holds over 19 million offender profiles. They could have their suspect within hours. But on February 17th, the results come back. No match. The DNA from the glove does not match any profile in CODIS. What's more, the DNA from the glove doesn't even match the separate DNA found inside Nancy's home. There are now two distinct DNA profiles in play. One from the glove found 2 miles away and one from inside the residence. They belong to different people. This raises a chilling possibility that investigators refuse to rule out. There may have been more than one person involved. While the DNA results hit a dead end, investigators find another lead hiding in the footage that was already released, the backpack. The suspect was carrying a black, 25-liter Ozark Trail hiker pack. Investigators determine this backpack is sold exclusively at one store, Walmart. Sheriff Nanos calls it one of the most promising leads in the case. Every Ozark Trail hiker pack purchased across Arizona for the past several months is now being reviewed. If the buyer used a credit card, a loyalty account, or was captured on in-store surveillance, investigators might be able to trace the purchase back to a specific individual. It's the kind of detail that was visible in the very first frame of footage, but it took days of analysis to identify the exact brand, model, and retailer. The clue was always there. It just needed someone to look closely enough. There's one more piece of technology that the kidnapper may not have accounted for. Nancy Guthrie has a Bluetooth-enabled pacemaker implanted in her chest. The device synced with an app on her phone and disconnected at 2:28 a.m. on February 1st. But the phone and the pacemaker are two different things. The phone was left behind. The pacemaker went wherever Nancy went. And pacemakers don't just sync with phones. They emit low-powered electronic signals, Bluetooth pings, that can potentially be detected by specialized equipment. Investigators bring in a technology company called Blue Fly, which specializes in search and rescue operations. Their equipment is designed to detect specific low-powered electronic signals, exactly the kind a pacemaker would emit. Helicopters begin flying low and slow over the Tucson area, and carrying signal detection equipment, trying to pick up a ping from Nancy's pacemaker. It's an unprecedented approach in a kidnapping case. The kidnapper may have planned for cameras, he may have planned for phones, but he almost certainly did not plan for a medical device inside his victim's chest that is still trying to communicate with the outside world. As of now, no signal has been confirmed, but the search continues. 3 weeks into the investigation, over 400 law enforcement personnel remain dedicated to the case. The FBI's command post in Tucson is still fully active. Personnel are being rotated through to keep fresh eyes on the evidence. And now, investigators go back to where it all started. The Nest camera. When the footage was first recovered and released to the public, it showed the suspect on Nancy's porch. But the FBI's forensic team has been working on something far more technical. They're not just reviewing the footage that was already downloaded. They're going into the back end of the entire Nest security system, the cloud architecture, the cached data, the partial uploads, the metadata, trying to extract anything and everything the system recorded before it was disconnected. Think of it like this. When the kidnapper ripped the camera off the wall at 1:47 a.m., he thought he was erasing his tracks. But modern cloud-connected cameras don't work that way. They upload data continuously in chunks over Wi-Fi. Even in the seconds before disconnection, partial video frames, motion detection logs, and system metadata may have been transmitted and stored on Google's servers. The camera was destroyed, but the data may have already escaped. The FBI describes this process as challenging, not because the data doesn't exist, but because extracting it from the back end of a consumer-grade security system requires working with the manufacturer's engineering team to access server-level data that ordinary users never see. What could this data contain? Additional images of the suspect from different moments during the night. Footage of how he approached. Did he come on foot? In a vehicle? From which direction? timestamps of earlier motion detection events? Was the suspect surveilling the house before he made his move? Was there a vehicle parked nearby? Was there a second person? If even a single additional frame shows something the public hasn't seen, a clearer view of his face, a vehicle, a direction of travel, it could break the case open. And there's another haunting detail that has emerged in the third week of the investigation. Fox News Digital reviewed publicly available Google Trends data and found something unsettling. Someone appears to have searched for Nancy Guthrie's home address, her specific street address in the Catalina Foothills, on at least 2 occasions before her kidnapping. The first potential search occurred between June 21st and 28th, 2025. The second, on January 11th, 2026, just 20 days before she vanished. On that same date, January 11th, a neighbor posted on the Ring Neighbors app asking people to share video footage from between 9 p.m. and midnight. The sheriff's office said the post did not come from them. It came from a private neighbor. Was someone scouting Nancy's home weeks before the abduction? Was the kidnapper watching her routine, learning her schedule, noting when she was home and when she wasn't? Google has cautioned that trends data for low-volume search terms can show statistical noise and should not be taken as definitive evidence that a search occurred. But the coincidence? Searches for her address in the same city where she lives, weeks before she's taken, is difficult to ignore. Investigators would not use publicly available marketing data to build a case. They would use subpoenas and warrants to get the actual search records from Google. Whether they've done so is unknown. The investigation is active, and law enforcement is not sharing operational details. But if those searches are real, it means something even more disturbing than what the doorbell footage shows. This wasn't random. This was planned. And the digital breadcrumbs may have been sitting in Google's servers for months, waiting for someone to look. Savannah Guthrie, one of the most recognized faces in American news, has spent the last 3 weeks not behind an anchor desk, but in Tucson, searching for her mother. She's posted multiple videos on Instagram, speaking directly to whoever took Nancy. In another video, joined by her brother and sister, she addresses the kidnapper directly. The family has said they are willing to pay. Ransom notes, at least 4 of them, have been sent to media outlets demanding millions in cryptocurrency. 2 deadlines have already passed. Investigators have not confirmed whether any of the notes are connected to the actual kidnapper. One man in Southern California has already been arrested for sending a fake ransom demand. A growing memorial has formed outside Nancy's home. Yellow flowers, candles, prayer cards, handwritten notes. A woman was photographed kneeling in prayer beside the makeshift shrine, adjusting devotional items placed in the dirt near the road. One handwritten letter, left on stationery from the Ritz-Carlton, was addressed directly to the kidnappers. The reward for information has grown to over $200,000. $100,000 from the FBI and $102,500 from 88 Crime after an anonymous donor contributed $100,000. Sheriff Nanos has made a direct plea to whoever is holding Nancy. As the investigation enters its 4th week, the urgency has not faded. Nancy Guthrie is 84 years old. She has limited mobility. She relies on daily medication that the sheriff says could be fatal if missed for more than 24 hours. She's been gone for 22 days. But investigators insist the case is not cold. Over 32,000 calls have flooded the sheriff's department since February 1st. The FBI has received more than 21,000 tips. Several hundred law enforcement personnel from multiple agencies remain actively working the case, and the DNA, the unidentified male DNA found inside Nancy's home that doesn't belong to her or anyone close to her, is now being processed through forensic investigative genetic genealogy. The same technique that caught the Golden State Killer. The same method that identified Brian Kohberger in the Idaho student murders. Genetic genealogist C.C. Moore one of the nation's leading experts, says the process could take as little as 20 minutes if there's a close relative in the public genealogy databases, or it could take years. Only the smaller databases, GEDmatch, Family Tree DNA, and DNA Justice, allow law enforcement access. Fewer than 2 million people have opted into those systems. Still, it only takes one relative, one cousin, one distant match on a family tree to start building a path toward the suspect. The man who took Nancy Guthrie came prepared. He wore a mask. He wore gloves. He brought a weapon. He disabled the camera. He disconnected her phone. He left no obvious trace of who he was, but he made mistakes. He dropped a glove with his DNA 2 miles from the house. He wore a backpack sold exclusively at Walmart that can be traced through purchase records. He didn't know Nancy had a pacemaker still sending signals from inside her chest. And he didn't understand that the camera he destroyed had already sent its data to the cloud. Data that the FBI is now pulling from the back end. Frame by frame, byte by byte, looking for the one detail he thought he'd erased. Nancy Guthrie has been missing for 22 days. Her family has not given up. The investigators have not given up. And somewhere in the digital remains of a destroyed Nest camera, in the tangled branches of a genetic family tree, in the purchase logs of a Walmart store, and in the faint electronic whisper of a pacemaker that may still be transmitting, somewhere in all of that is the answer. The data was always there. It just needed someone to go back and look. If you have any information about the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie, please contact 1-800-CALL-FBI, the Pima County Sheriff's Department at 520-351-4900 or 88-CRIME. When the FBI is offering a reward of up to $100,000 for information leading to Nancy's recovery or the arrest and conviction of anyone involved.